Hi everyone, I'm Antoinette. Welcome to the Happen Films podcast. In this episode we talk to Brett and Nici from Limestone Permaculture farm in New South Wales, Australia. Jordan and I made our first film together at their place back in 2015, and last year Jordan was able to return to shoot a follow-up film that we recently released on YouTube. Brett and Nici started their permaculture journey over a decade ago. They lived on a small urban section in the city of Newcastle, where they began growing their own food. In time, their passion for permaculture and homesteading saw them sell up and buy the 1 acre property that's now Limestone Permaculture Farm. They recently achieved their dream of working full-time at home, practicing and teaching everything they've learnt over the years. We wanted to chat with them again to hear about how they're keeping their 1 acre property thriving through drought and being in proximity to massive bushfires, and what keeps them so inspired to dedicate their lives to living off the land. We also asked them a handful of viewer questions from your comments on YouTube and Instagram. Since we recorded this interview, Jordan's flown to Australia to help care for an unwell family member. He may be gone for a few months, so things will look a little different on the podcast for a while. It's 2020, you just have to ride it and hope for the best. Forgive us a few dodgy connection issues in this episode where the audio dropped out momentarily. Nonetheless, we hope you'll enjoy the conversation as much as we did.
Brett, Nici, it's so nice to see you guys again, and thank you for sitting down to have a chat with us about where things are at with you both since we shot the last film with you. It's been 6 months. Mm-hmm. How's life on the farm since the pandemic has become part of our realities? And yeah, how's it been for your family and life there for you guys?
Hey guys, well thanks for having us back. Here on Limestone Farm, the changes haven't been too dramatic as far as the lockdown period go. The farm's still running. We're still getting through our day-to-day things as we normally do in the homesteading. We're having a pretty good time being together as a family. We realise that there's some massive impacts, and we really feel for those that are being impacted by that. But for us, we've been building towards resilience. Resilience on the farm, resilience to live a comfortable life. If those things slow up or if those things close down to us, those avenues shut down, which they have, we've still got that ability to function and
pretty much self-sufficient to an extent.
Live a normal life, live a comfortable life. And I think that's part of that resiliency, because when you think about these events that are happening right now, the idea of resilience is not just about whether your farm's going to survive a drought or if it's going to survive a fire, but it's also as a family. Are you still having a comfortable life? Are you still living a life that you're happy about? And so for us,
keep healthy as well at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, all in all, I think that at the moment, this period for us, apart from it being an awakening for our countries and the world, essentially it's something that we have been sort of, I wouldn't say preparing for. You can never prepare. I had no idea this was going to happen, but you're still preparing to be resilient, right? So for us, I think it's just that we were sort of ready. Yeah.
It's really interesting that notion, that historical notion of prepping, and it's got a bit of a bad name for itself, which is really different to being prepared in the way and for resilience in the way that you guys are. And I think that's a really interesting thing to talk about, like the difference between prepping, which is often lots of cans in the pantry and guns in some hidden spot somewhere, and a bunker. A lot of people talk about all these billionaires setting up bunkers in the south of New Zealand, and you kind of have this picture of these very scared humans and how lonely and unprepared they'll actually be, compared to what you guys are doing, which wasn't specifically preparing for disaster on that kind of scale, but which sets you up to be so much more prepared, doesn't it? In so many different ways.
It does. That's right. Emotionally and physically, we basically are homesteading every day of our lives. That's how we live. In that we utilise the produce that we grow on the farm, whether it be for food or medicine. We keep growing. So we're growing all different species. Nearly every day we're planting something new, saving seeds. All
the parts that go together to build that permaculture principled homesteading life. I mean,
Yes.
it's that day-to-day living and that day-to-day practice of
That's building resilience.
You actually get reasonably good at it. And so when you're talking about preparing or being prepared, or prepping and being prepared, we are always trying to be prepared, because we're trying to be prepared for a slower amount of produce that might come through winter. We're preparing for soil enhancement. Everything's some form of preparation, and part of that too is also that community base. So as part of that too, you have that interaction with your greater networks. Your neighbourhood, your groups. Especially things like the permaculture groups and stuff, but also your local communities. And so what we've also found with what's going on right now is a lot of those groups that were sort of probably staying a little bit quiet on the side, still having interaction, still networking, but all of a sudden they've come to the forefront. So when you think about that preparation in the background, even as groups and community networks, they've been prepping or being prepared, they've been getting prepared without probably even thinking about it. It's just, whenever you have that community relationship, you're preparing for something where you may be able to utilise something that comes from China or something that comes from Queensland. You've got to utilise something that comes from your local community, and that's preparing.
We've been doing a lot of bartering.
Yeah, lots of bartering.
And in a way, it's been a bonus that people have been at home so much, because people are learning new skills. People are utilising the produce and the animals on their own farms. And there's been a lot of bartering system. It's been sad that we haven't been able to see as many people, of course, sad for everybody. But with social media now, it's so easy to connect, which is really good. But
we're definitely connected.
We do miss that person, because his farm is usually so lively with people, students, visitors, friends, family. But we've found it's been a good opportunity for us to get educated through documentaries like what you guys are producing, eye-opening,
non-stop research, non-stop reading, non-stop watching.
It's been a time to slow down and do a little bit of that as well, a bit more intellectual learning rather than just the daily, it's not a grind of farming and homesteading, but stopping and learning new skills ourselves. And also we've taught ourselves, in a sense, to teach others through social media, like through Zoom type.
I've learned a thing or two.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about Zoom before this.
And thank God we've got a 24-year-old living at home at the moment, because he's been able to assist us with a bit of that.
Talking about that research and that ability to,
upskill.
Yeah. I mean, knowledge is gold. I mean, at the moment, now's the time. If anybody's ever thinking about what they should be doing right now, it should be just upskilling at a flat out rate. If whatever vision you have to utilise that vision, you've got to build your knowledge base up. Yeah.
Yeah, and also we've been trying to reflect that onto the children, especially with our 13-year-old daughter. I'm doing a lot more cooking with her and teaching her some herbal medicine, and spending a lot more time out getting in touch with plants and spending more time with the animals. And so it's been a learning curve for all of us. And something we can all learn from this period of COVID is that life is unpredictable, and if we can just be a little bit more prepared for the future, even if it's just preparing for your own family, and very importantly, is prepare for your own health as well. We don't know if there's even, I want to get too political on it, but if there is going to be a vaccine that is efficient, so we need to look at not so much Band-Aid treatments, but for some of us who can, is to build up our resilience health-wise. And look at what nature's got to offer, look at what research has got to offer, and try and build up your immune systems rather than panicking about, when are we going to have this vaccine or a cure-all.
It'd be wonderful to see more focus on the kind of, I guess, the kind of alternative health approaches that you've probably, I think, because this whole journey for you guys started, I think, Nici, with your health challenges a few years ago, and that's something that really interests me because I've probably taken a similar journey, and that's what's brought me onto this track for me as well. And I feel really passionate about this opportunity, this window that's opened up to look at how we build our immune systems and how we build our resilience to this kind of thing, rather than focusing on a vaccine, which, great if that creates some sort of temporary solution. But what we need is not the Band-Aid, like you say. So it's like you guys are in kind of in the space that, in an ideal world, I think all of us would be in, really, of being more resilient in our health, of being more resilient in our food supply, of being more resilient within our community. Like, it's a really beautiful thing that you guys have set up.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, appreciate it. Look, when you think about where we've got to now, and I've mentioned it before, and we always talk about it through our education programs and stuff. It all comes back to that very first awakening, that very first awareness you have. Now, for us, obviously, and Nici could tell that story, but for me, it was when I saw my wife being, having an illness. My awakening those 17, 18 years ago was like a situation where I'm feeling quite helpless at that point in time, and I'm thinking, what can I do to change? Like I was a carpenter, I was surfing, I was just doing I was a father, I was doing the normal thing. And it just, I was always looking to always have a nice home and all that kind of thing. I did that. As a carpenter, I did that. But I realised that was a little bit superficial. And so with Nici's health, I knew that we had to go much further. So, when I made those little steps and we had that beautiful little urban garden, and it functioned and it was really, really good. That just sparked and absolutely sparked that not so much even a passion for me, but it sparked the realization that you could change and you could actually make change rather quickly.
And nutrition was the medicine.
Yeah. So it was about the food. Originally, it was about the food. Yeah. So yeah.
I was undiagnosed for so long and had so many ailments for so long that it became very apparent that the more uptake and assimilation of highly nutrient foods, the better I became. And obviously less stress when you're not well is also a good thing. But, I was diagnosed with a few immune disorders, and at one stage I'd been overseas and I'd contracted some third world parasites. So all of that was, some of it was diagnosed and some of it was still, doctors, as so many people say, I have no idea how we can help you. So we had to take health back into our own hands. And we realised that with me and with so many people out there, that until you start living cleanly, as in clean organic food and nutrient soil, the way you eat, not too much food, the times you eat at the day, the exercise you get. I've been truly blessed that I've got a husband that I've got that is so passionate about my health and looking after myself and family, and also that he's such a good gardener as well, and farmer and teacher now. So it's I'm in a very fortunate position, but there's so many people out there that aren't. So my whole aim with being on the farm, well, one of my aims is to learn as much as I can, and through my experiences, and try and help so many people.
And when you think about the initial pathways, I just mentioned how that was the kickoff for me, Nici's illness, but I'm just thinking about our initial start on the journey. That time when I was, you were being ill, having this illness, and I'm looking at, right, yep, we need to change the food. Yep, I need to live differently. I need to create a better environment. But at the same time, you began researching like mad.
Yeah.
And you end up becoming more informed than the doctors that you were going to ask for some kind of diagnosis.
Yeah.
So you actually, I remember that you even basically self-diagnosed and went and told a doctor that you thought you had this. They went, oh, by the way, I think you do. You know, like.
Which is exhausting because you look on the internet and there's so much dire information. You know, you look up a couple of the ailments you might have and symptoms and you go, oh, crikey, you know. This. But the thing is, you have to try and almost look at it as like, we need to go back to clean slate.
It'd be cool to hear about how the property's been going and what's happened, or kind of like what's the weather been like since we were there filming, because it was really dry. There were bushfires not too far away and it was really hazy.
Yeah, well, look, you know, when you came to the original filming, that was obviously right at the start of November there, end of October, early November. We still had a little bit of a green tinge. A tinge. Yeah. So what happened was the drought escalated. It's been going for probably, at that point in time, it had been going for about 2 and a bit years. It got to its worst point around about first and second week of January. So by December it was really bad. By January it was phenomenally bad, to the extent that not only was everybody's tank water dried up, but even anybody that had access to village water or small town water was gone. It was stage 4 restrictions, and they were, and all the towns in the area, they're all tanking water in. So, you know, like you're talking about when you're thinking about an event happening that has a major impact, one of the biggest events you can have is no water. Like, you know, we all can only live so long without water. Well, plants are the same. So it got to the stage where obviously it was illegal to even virtually have a tap in your hand, like a hose in your hand. So, you know, if you had your own tank water, and we were lucky, we stretched ours out. And I mean, when I say stretched it out, we still ran out. We are also connected to the village town water as well, and it was gone as well. So, you know, you can imagine that every possible redundancy we had to be ready for this still end up running out. So it became a lesson. Well, it became a bigger lesson than I originally thought. And so we went through that stage of absolutely no water, absolute evaporation. Now, the part then that steps into play, and this is leading to where we got to when the rain first coming back at the very end of February and well into March, was that the parts that did really well, and this is part of that permaculture design process, is understanding when you're thinking about water and you think about water harvesting, you also think about water retention, and water retention is trying to reduce evaporation. So essentially, you know, by having those overhead trees and by having those windbreaks in place, and whether it be structures, trees, landforms, whatever it might be, those things then reduce the evaporation. So whereas a farm near us that was in the same circumstance with lack of water and the same kind of temperature and winds, they would be gone in no time. They were drying out within that week. The resilience of our farm, of our little farm here, was the fact that it just kept holding, and it just kept holding. So there was shade at the right time of the day, and when the winds picked up and they were hot and dry, it was enough protection. So it was just enough to keep things ticking over. So ground covers kept sort of holding in there. And look, things dried out, and we lost a couple of plants and trees, of course. But in the big picture, it was only a very, very small percentage. So this is the one big event after the 10 years on the farm. This May right now is our 10th birthday on Limestone Farm. And we can now look back over those 10 years and say that this last summer was the telling factor for us to your farm to be resilient from a climatic event.
Yeah.
And that's gold. I mean, the data we've got now in the sense of just capturing via photo and aerial shots and, you know, making note. So one of the things we do is we take stacks of, you know, personalised photos where we keep a file of what happened this month and what happened in this event. So then this has now led us to the fact that we had this resilience leading right through right through to the first rain, which was at the end of February. And then the rains slowly escalated. So the first rains were very light. We were getting 3 mil here and 5 mil there, but we were excited because it hadn't rained for months. And then it slowly got stronger and stronger. And March became fantastic. March was just like brilliant. You know, it was. And so we got that much rain that what we then saw, and again we could compare to the land around us and other farms around us, was the bounce back. How quick, you know, that rain. So everybody goes, oh, it's rained, of course you've gone green. Yeah, but we did that much faster. And also some of those different forest layers that were in a lot of our gardens all came back at the same time. So it actually looked dense and more growth, more biomass in a shorter period of time. So that bounce back was quicker as well. So our food production jumped back up again. Because at one stage there, I mean, if we hadn't had that rain in March, we would have been struggling to even get pumpkins growing through to winter. Yeah. You know, it was pretty tough.
Yeah, not to forget the bushfires.
Oh, well, yeah, that was just an added bonus. No.
They got closer after you left, Jordan. Yeah. And we got more snakes too.
Yeah. The fires got pretty close. So, yeah, after your film, it got to the stage where Nici and my daughter had to leave. They were probably within about 750 metres, maybe no more than a kilometre off the back.
Yeah.
You know, obviously I wasn't going anywhere, but, you know, looking after family, we sort of had to say, well, okay, this could be a problem. But like all our most awesome volunteer firefighters, they just worked day and night and they hammered it. You know, so, you know, thumbs up for those guys.
Yeah, what was seen all over Australia.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
So we were lucky.
Very lucky.
Yeah. Now, you know, obviously, again, though, saying that we try in part of the design too, we talk about, you know, utilising fire retardant trees, which won't necessarily stop a fire. You're just talking about slowing fires down by reducing the amount of embers that come through. So if you have a nice evergreen windbreaks and stuff like that, they can also take a bit of that ember movement that's coming through. You know, we can't be fooled by the fact that they're going to, you know, actually stop a fire raging through, but you can definitely give yourself more time maybe to defend your property.
And we've got a bit of a protection zone around.
We have got a nice little buffer zone as well, yeah. So, yeah, look, essentially I would say in summary that we came out of it really good. We've got photographic evidence to prove that, which is what demonstration is authority, right? So, you know, we now have that photographic evidence where we can say, okay, guys, we're not just telling you this is what it'll do. Have a look. This is what actually happens, and we've kept certain data about that. You know, we've even kept every bit of rainfall. We've got a calendar, so we use, you know, it's just something as simple as Google Calendar, and every time it rained, whether it be 5 millimeters, we'd note it on the calendar, just so we knew what was happening through all those months. If we got 3 mil, it was noted down. If it got over 40 degrees, so anything over 40 degrees, that was, some people say 35 is extreme, but 40 for us, over 40 is extreme. So, you know, knowing that our property takes on anything from -4 in winter to 49 degrees in summer so far in the last 10 years. So, yeah, we have some pretty decent extremes. So it's a challenge, but it's good.
So I'm interested to know whether over that experience you came up with any changes that you might make in how you capture and conserve water.
Yeah, look, always. So that, you know, the lessons are there for you. You've just got to be observant. So for us, I realised that we didn't have enough overhead trees, number one. So, you know, Nici and I were walking out constantly checking the farm, always looking for indicators, you know, where the soil was becoming bare and where certain plants the understory plants were being affected by, you know, this extreme weather. So we realised, even with what we've got set up, that there's always going to be fine tuning. You know, knowing that it's an evolution, right? There is no such thing as a final design. It doesn't exist. You're not building a house. So you're working with nature, but it's an evolving transitional set of patterns, basically. Yeah. And so one of those patterns was that wherever it dried out, we went, oh, we've got to shade that, you know, or we have to cover that. Hasn't got enough ground cover. So, you know, so the things we learned was more about more protection, being more prepared the next time, and absolutely we're going to get it
You
again.
need to be forever adapting in this climate, in this world. It's forever changing, so we have to keep adapting to hotter summers.
Everything adapt. We say it all the time. That adaptation thing is everything from your own health right through to your land, your animals, your family. Yeah. So and you can only really adapt if you take the time to observe, note it, assess it, and then analyze that information and work out, okay, righto, so you can turn that back on itself, or the old permaculture adage, the problem is the solution. Half the time it is, probably most of the time it is. So you can turn that back in. When we were hitting that drought, one of the things that we had was the trees, about the evaporation and the windbreak. So we needed more of that, and we've already started doing that. And the other part was we've needed some more water storage, so we bought another tank. And again, we're like most people. We can't go out and buy all the tanks we need all at once. So as you save your money up and afford to buy, we get a tank here, and a couple of months later we get a tank there. So, but yeah, and look, to be honest, we're probably sitting around 70,000 litres at the moment for 1 acre, which is okay. Our goal is 100,000 litres. That's what we want saved in tank form, and then obviously water saved in the landscape's a whole different thing again. But yeah, so that's our aim, and that's what we learnt from the drought.
And how did the animals fare through all this?
Oh, well, look, again, with the small animal management, and as part of that design process, one of the things that we planned, so that's the preparation thing, was that we chose the animals that would do well anyway in our temperatures. So, we were a little bit more specific with the type of chickens we use. We're more specific with the type of ducks. We've got certain goats. Also, the stocking rates. So, what we did was, once it hit the drought period, like you'd normally see on a large-scale system, how they reduce their stock, we did that as well. We reduced our stock. The difference is that we, don't reduce and sell off and then have to try and buy that all back again. All we do is, it's more a little bit like a heartbeat. You're coming in and out, and you're moving with those situations. So you come into extreme summer, you contract. You're coming into beautiful rain and a better environment, maybe through autumn or whatever, and you can expand again a little bit. But you're doing it with what the farm can produce. So your animals are producing the babies.
And we've always got requests for purchasing our permaculture raised animals. So
yeah.
It's never a problem moving them to another farm, and they handle the heat pretty well. But saying that, you need to take good care of them. They need to be checked at least a few times a day.
Yep.
We give them a lot of we make them a lot of big ice blocks with soups and stews and fruits, herbs, and
Nici makes soup ice blocks
and
for animals.
A lot of people do. Yeah, it's quite common, but it's just keeping them cool and keeping them shaded. Occasionally, we'd get maybe put them into another area that might be a little bit cooler than one area, or block one area off where some animals aren't as smart as the other ones, and they'll go and sit in the sun in the very hot. But it's just being mindful and keeping a really close eye on your animals. And lots of hydration. So
your animals have certain abilities, and that's where you look at. And sorry guys, I'm going to go deep in some permaculture really quickly here. You've got the NFPC, so you've got the needs, functions, products, and characteristics. It's an assessment tool or an analytic tool that you use whenever you bring anything into your homestead, whether it be urban or rural. So, if it's an animal, because it could be a plant, it could be a human, whatever. But if it's an animal, you'd get them to go, what does it need? What's its function? What's its product, because it might be giving you eggs or whatever, and what's its characteristic? Is it, if you're thinking chicken, what's a chicken going to need? So you go through that assessment tool. It's quite quick. Yeah, it doesn't take long to do, but by doing that, you're giving the animal the best chance of living in your environment, for starters. So the animal you bring onto the place is preferred to your local microclimate or climatic situation. So, that's the initial thing. When you think about saying how do your animals do, you're really designing the right animals to come into your homestead situation, and then you use the design of the property. So then the shade trees and the things that are going to be doing the regulation of the temperature. So, the right kind of tree in the right spot will prevent hot winds or cold winds, and they'll provide shade. And even in winter on a frosty day, they'll regulate the temperature so it doesn't get as cold in that particular area. So,
and for food.
Yeah, and obviously for food, yeah. So, it's a whole combination of things of why your animals might do well in those conditions, yeah.
And at their happy as well.
Yeah, ethically.
Yeah, they looked happy. And I love that you've tried to mimic the kind of natural environment that they would be in. The chickens have so much to scratch around in. They're pretty much always covered. There's so much variety that they get to live in, which is, what they've evolved to live in, forest environments. So
you said in the latest film that you're self-sufficient for food for the goats, which I think is
pretty amazing.
Really, really awesome. I mean, that's got to be one of the great goals, isn't it, to not need to buy in food for your animals. Is that the case for the chickens as well and the ducks?
The goats are an absolute definite. They are 100% off the farm. Right, that is an absolute definite. We've been working with the poultry's a different scenario. The good thing about goats are they garbage guts, right? So basically, you can feed them all the prunings, and there's just so much. When you build so much diversity into your farm, that diversity goes back into their bellies as well. With the chickens and the ducks and stuff, we find that we're working towards, we're transitioning towards a day when we will be 100%. Where are we now? We're probably sitting around about 75% fed from the farm, and we still have a supplementary 25% worth of pellet coming into it, scratch mix, stuff like that. So, and some of those things that are helping to make up that 75%. Right now, we've got a brilliant little setup in the poultry pens. It's just, after that rain, it's just amazing. I mean, we've got nearly 3.5 metre high corn. We've got chia in there. We've got 2 different types of amaranth, and you're talking high protein seed there. So it's awesome for the birds. Plus they eat the leaves, the greens, all the different biomass. So it's a little bit of a forest layered setup for those guys. So probably also answering that is that depending on what time of the year would also depend on how well what percentage of feed.
Yeah. What extra feed we need to give, supplement feed,
So when you turned up, Jordan, we were probably coming into a period where we had to do a little bit more supplementary feeding. Yeah. So if you're talking about what your absolute down period would be with feeding those animals, you may get down as far as, on our farm, we may get down as far as 50-50. So 50% supplementary, 50% off the farm. I mean, we've always got plenty to feed. I mean, there's always something definitely kicking in. And
we can improve on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're working on it. I mean, that was a chronic drought, and, that really tests us out. So to know that we still were able to, provide, and then get to the stage where things come good again, and then you're back up to easily 75%, then you're saying, right, well, there's my fluctuation. Can I get it to 100% during the good times and maybe 75% during the bad times? I mean, I'd be super happy. I'd be super happy with that. Super happy, yeah.
Yeah, that's still an amazingly high ratio of what you're getting on your farm, and only on an acre as well. There's been quite a few comments in the video on the video of people saying, is that really an acre? That can't be. There's just too much in there. People don't believe us when we put that in the description. It's like, no, that's not an acre. I guess that's good design. Yeah, speaking of comments, maybe we should check out some of the YouTube comments and see what people are asking and see what you guys have to say about them. We've got
a few questions on YouTube, and then we've got some questions from Instagram.
All the social media.
Or just those two. Let's see what people have asked. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, so the first question was actually one that I'd forgotten that this was in here, asking how you water the property, where it's coming from, how you harvest and store it, and also asking how much water is used in an average day. I don't know whether, I mean, you've pretty much covered this question, but I don't know whether you want to add anything to it.
I can tell you that the water for an average day, there is no average day. So, you're working with so many different parameters. It depends on what time frame you're in with your successional growing. So with the annual crops, so there might be a time when you've got seedlings out and you use a bit more water. It may be come into some dry times, you use a bit more water. You might have really wet times, you're using way less water. Look at the average scenario. We could never probably give any kind of reasonable data that anybody could use. It's just, it fluctuates. It's more for us. Probably it's more important to how much water we don't use. So we only work on percentages. So if we've got 70,000 litres sitting on the farm, and maybe in an average year you might use that or double, or depending what the scenario is. We sort of more looking about that if we've still got water through a dry period. So if this next summer comes and we've now got up 70,000 litres worth of water, and there happens to be at the end of summer still say 15,000 left, well then we go, yeah, okay, that's worthy of noting, and we'll just put that down as that we had that much left in our tanks for that summer period. But daily requirements, yeah, that would be a bit tough to answer.
So the next question is one of the key features of these permaculture setups the fact that you're set up on a hill or a slope?
Permaculture design can be replicated and scaled in pretty much any environment. But when we're looking for an appropriate property, like when we're assisting people with pre-purchase assessments, we do try to look for some properties that have a little bit of slope in them. I mean, ideally, it's nice to have a bit of slope and a bit of level and a bit of slope and a bit of level, but who gets that luck all the time? So the idea of slope, it simply means that you've got free energy. You've got gravity feed, right? So slope means that you can control water flow a little bit easier. It means that if you're in a frost environment, frost moves like water, so frost will move and you can control the frost. And so, slope is energy. It's free energy. And also when you're thinking about our physical capacity and abilities, slope means downhill it's easier, uphill it's harder. So you can design when you're doing uphill stuff that you're going to be carrying less with you, you're doing less work moving uphill, and the heavier stuff is working downhill. So yeah, it's purely an energy basis. I mean, if you've got a flat block, don't worry. I mean, you can totally set your place up according to permaculture principles. Slope is just a little bonus.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it like that before as energy.
Yeah, I love that. It's free. It's just free energy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great way to think about it. And this last person has asked, okay, so back to the animal feed, or to the animals. Do you foresee any other types of animals and how you'll feed them? So are you planning on bringing on other kinds of animals in the future?
Would love.
You want some pigs?
Would love it. Love pigs. Space. At some point in time, you do fill out every bit of space you have on your property. And to be, again, if you did an NFPC that needs functions, products, characteristics, you would find your pigs would need a certain area and a certain lifestyle. And I'm finding it hard to be able to give that to them on our property. But yeah, if I had the chance, I would love to even just, sort of pygmy pigs or small pigs or something like that. Yeah, I'd love to down there. I mean, I love pigs as something to even play with. I think they're the most awesome creature. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. What else would you like? Anything else?
No, I can't think of anything. I think I'm pretty happy with, the turkeys were our latest addition. Turkeys. And they're just gorgeous. Just love them, the noises, and they're very friendly, and they've got crazy personalities. So we've got the chooks, the ducks, 2 types of ducks, quails, a couple of goats. We've got the turkeys, and the 2 dogs now. We did have 1 dog, but we've We've accumulated another dog with the son. So our son moving back home. Yeah. But no, it's when we've got enough animal action going on around here at the moment to keep us busy.
So we thinned out our animals. We've obviously contracted during this period, this lockdown period. So we've gone back to probably only about 60 animals on the farm at the moment. But in good times,
and most of that are poultry.
Yeah, most of poultry. That's right. Here's your pumpkin. But in good times, we will expand to sort of, we get up to 120, 130 animals. So again, though, it's not how many you have; it's relevant to what you can sustain them with, and have them have an ethical life. Where it's at least close enough to how they would potentially live in the wild or in their native ecosystem. Yeah.
And on the subject of animals, I remembered something that you guys were saying when I was there filming, that with the drought getting worse further inland, you were seeing more bird life come to your place. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's not as prominent now, is it? No. Yeah, but I think also with the change in seasons.
Yeah. But through the fires and through the drought.
Yeah.
They were looking for food and water.
It was quite sad, actually. You'd hear them calling down in the valley, and
that's right.
It was all these different breeds of birds and different types of animals, and a lot more snakes on the property.
The wildlife corridors
desperate for food and water.
Yeah, the wildlife corridors really opened up. We do occasionally hear foxes and dingoes and that coming through over the back, but that you could hear them in groups. They were talking to each other, as they're going through, and they were moving with the fire. The fires were forcing, and so we noticed that. Also, we noticed we had a few young birds and bats dying on our property. So we come out. When I say dying, would they be dead? We'd come out in the morning, and there'd be birds sitting under our mulberry trees, just young birds. And so they've made it to our property, but they're just exhausted. So there was, and we leave all our big mulberry trees. I mean, basically our mulberry trees feed the birds. We have the smaller ones we net, but the big ones we've got down the back, that's part of our giving back to nature.
Our sacrificial trees.
Yeah, they do. And so, there was a mile. At one point there, it was pretty funny because I don't think we've ever seen so many different species of birds in the one tree at any one time. So, that was pretty wild. So, it was it was something to, at the time, it was something to observe. I'm sure that there was quite a bit of wildlife lost apart from just the fires, but the domino effect of what the droughts and the fires caused, so they may not have been burnt, but they were just depleted of water and totally exhausted. So it was
lovely to see, but it was sad to see.
Yeah.
It is a sad thing, but it's also like, it must be pretty satisfying to know that this thing you've created is, helping a small amount of wildlife. Like, I imagine, one day if we have our own kind of permaculture set up on a place, to like be able to know that some of that is just for the rest of nature.
Yeah, you've created a bit of an oasis in that area, haven't you, for the wildlife? And
they get a fair feed too, don't worry. I mean, we've got trees here where it's not a case, sometimes you hear people say, I've given up on trying to grow this because the wildlife get it. You take a step back and you re-look at what that is. Instead of saying you're giving up, you're saying to yourself, no, that's what I'm going to give back, right? And it's easy enough to set up exclusion nettings and set up certain areas where you can get what you need to get out of your property, but you've got to have some setup where you're always going to have wildlife coming in. So you may as well give them an area to come to. You may as well give them something to have, and that's all part of that design process. So you're analysing and you're understanding why that needs to happen according to where you live and the type of wildlife that's going to come in. So, I mean, we get a buzz out of it. And then let's not forget the benefits that you get back from that, the different, it plays a part as in the integrated pest management. So, at the moment, we've got an amazing array of frogs, amazing array of birds coming in. We've got finches and, wrens?
Wrens, blue wrens.
That weren't here when we got here. They were not here. and they've now made home. They've now got proper nests, and they're reusing nests in certain areas in the hedgerows. And so, essentially, you're building that ecology, and part of that ecology is the fact that you're going to get visited.
And they eat all your elderberries.
They eat your elderberries.
And your lily pillies and your mulberries. Yeah. Not all of it intentional.
No, it's good.
But no, it's so lovely just to be able to come out your back door and have a cup of tea in the morning and just watch nature.
Yeah.
That's
what we always wanted.
Supposed to be, yeah.
Cool. We'll take a couple of questions from Instagram now. Someone's asking, this is probably a question that you could speak for hours on, but any suggestions for inner city renters who want to grow more with limited space and sun?
All right, I'll try and keep this reasonably brief. So most people that have been following our story would know that we originally had an inner city permaculture setup called the Urban Squeeze. So where we come from was a 330 square metre block with a house on it, which meant all we had was a courtyard and a little strip out the front of our veranda, and obviously a nature strip out the front of that. So we know where that's coming from. And one of the things I would suggest is everybody always talks about vertical gardening, and that is a big player in small space situations. But then just think about, when you're saying vertical, what happens after you reach vertical? Well, you go aerial, right? So vertical's thinking about trellis. But one of the things that we did quite well back in our little suburb of Mayfield in Newcastle was that we were able to then send it from the trellis over into wherever it had to go. So it might be on wires, it might be moving across carport roofs, it might be going into the neighbour's property. But it's,
back lane.
So the idea is you're trying to sneak every square centimetre of growing area. And if you live in an apartment with just a veranda off the back, you're not just thinking trellis, you're also thinking what's going to go overhead. So aerial growing.
Vines.
Yeah, like you're thinking about what can you put over the top of you as well as the sides. And I know that might sound fairly simplistic, but most people only ever talk about trellis growing and vertical stuff. So get it going over your head. I mean, if you're prepared to take the challenge, you can have pumpkins hanging over your head. Occasionally one will fall down and nearly hit you on the head, but they're perfect. You can get the right pumpkin to grow over the top of you that won't be too heavy, won't sag down, isn't going to cause an injury. So there's all different kinds of things you can have happening overhead. We're used to seeing it on things like chocos and passion fruit and things like that, but there's much more. You can even train your tomato vines. You can train certain fruit trees to even come up and over the top of you, creating an arch. The idea is just use every bit of space. Everything is 3D. Use everything you possibly can and give yourself the smallest amount of moving space within that area. Because if you're in a tight area, you haven't got the luxury of, being able to dance out wide or whatever. It's, the idea is that you want a little area to get through, you want a nice little area to sit back and relax, but you're trying to get the absolute maximum. I mean, even have it trailing around your tables. If anybody remembers the photo that we put up, and I can easily show that one, put that up again, was that we had a picnic table sitting in the back of this little courtyard, and we ran out of space. All that was left was the picnic table. And so one day we're sitting there, or Nici and I are on either side of this picnic table, and we're sort of looking at each other and we're going, what are we going to do? Where can we make some more space here? And all of a sudden we're looking at the picnic table, and within about 3 days, the picnic table split in half. It's opened up. It's got a garden going through the centre. There's stuff coming up through the middle of it. And what was left was a strip of the picnic table with a seat, with the bench seat in front of it, and the same on the other side. So it ended up being like 2 benches and a little thing, and then the space that was taken up by excess picnic table became another spot where it was all just garden in the centre of it. So think outside the square and go for gold. I mean, there's no limit to your imagination.
And if you run out at home or in your apartment, you can obviously grow in verges. You can grow in down your local community gardens. I mean, I don't know how much
guerrilla gardening. Yes,
obviously as more people are out and about now and allowed out and about, that hopefully we'll see more people out with the community garden setups. And
take over the land, people. Go as far and wide as you can. It's better to get a slap on the wrist and already have it there and be eating from it, because you may not get the slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
So I've always been about creeping into spaces that may not essentially be yours.
Or you may have a friend that's got some land. There's a lot of people that know other people with land, and I know a lot of people
farm share, garden share,
exactly,
backyard share.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like you say, the only way that councils are going to change regulations about where we can grow food is if we make that sneaking progress that soon they're going to see that it really has to happen.
We had the local council come down the back lane, and they would mow down the back, and they would leave our sweet potatoes alone.
They would leave it.
So if you just speak to them, I mean, if you're in close contact, they want to see that sort of thing going on. It's you just got to ensure that if you are growing somewhere, that council doesn't come and spray. Yeah, that's the main thing, or whip a snippet up. But,
We'll take one more question from Instagram. This person's asking, what are some things what things they wish someone had taught them when you first started?
What I wish I'd been told back in the day would probably be when I first started getting into permaculture. When I first started getting into permaculture, there's probably a couple of things. One of the main things was that I was originally told that permaculture design was, I'd been advised permaculture design was a fixed thing. It was, like you made a design and there's your plan and you go with it, you run with that, that's your plan. What I wish I'd been told back then, which took me a while to understand that, and through learnings from other people, David Holgram and all that, was that it's a transitional and evolving thing. So and also probably taking a little step back from that again, is that what permaculture is like for me. So again, when I first came to permaculture, one of the things that, again, when I asked the question, what I got was, it was a form of gardening and agriculture, and I go, okay, righto. So I was a noob, and I essentially got there and I went, right. So permaculture is a type of gardening. So for the first couple of years, that was even with reading, I didn't quite grasp it straight away, and it felt like that's what it was. It wasn't until I got a little bit deeper, got more involved with some of my peers, and had a good mentor, that I realised that permaculture was more the design umbrella of all the different techniques you're going to use, not just for gardening, but for daily life. So it was more like that whole of life systems living, like every facet of your daily life, every facet of you getting up in the morning had some form of permaculture principle that could be utilised in it. And so the design stuff as well was more the fact that it was that overriding understanding that the design itself was the blanket for everything else to come in under. So then after that, I started to realise that when they talked about, what's the difference between permaculture and organic gardening? Well, there is no difference. Permaculture uses the design process to then understand, is that the type of technique you're going to use on your property? So you could go through and you've got biodynamics, organics, alley cropping, regenerative farming, syntropic farming. There's a mile of different techniques you can use, but you need to understand, is it the right one for your property? And you'll only find that out if you do the research and understand the design process. You can take shortcuts for sure, but if you go through that process, you'll learn what that is. So I know I've gone the long way around this too, guys, but if I'd understood this at the start, I reckon I could have made some leaps to where I am right now. So you've got to appreciate, I probably lost quite a few years in not really understanding what permaculture is and what the permaculture design process was about. So I would say, if I could have had that a whole lot earlier, definitely.
But I think you also have to live that to learn it.
Yeah, that's been a big part of it, for sure. But I mean, to have it explained essentially as being an umbrella of design process and design science, then using techniques, even something as simple, I would have gone, okay, it would have been so much easier. Yeah.
And I think for me, it's probably if someone had said to me, don't overthink things and don't overcomplicate things in your life. I think sometimes we try to, I don't know if the word's achieve, we try to do too much in one day, or try to fix too many problems in one day, whether it's your own problems or other people's problems. Sometimes I think we need to just get a little bit more back to basics with everything, and that's what we've learnt to do, haven't we? In a sense, I think that's what homesteading is too. It's the basics, and it's working with all different aspects of good basics.
We applied a bit of pressure on ourselves early, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Whereas, again, this is the hindsight thing.
As we've lived it, it's become more apparent that, and even in this COVID-19 period, to so many people, everyone's become more compassionate and more understanding of each other and their families. And I mean, I know there's a lot of sadness out there, and it's been a horrible period. But if we can take something really, really special from this, it's that we've all become so aware of community, aware of our need for each other, and our need for good living, good health.
Yeah, I think you're right. That it's, you can't. Yeah, there's some sort of balance you need to find. You need to live it in order to fully understand it. But at the same time, I think with the workshops that you guys offer, you're now able to pass on that knowledge that you wish you had in the first place. So with all of that knowledge that you've accrued over these years, what future plans have you got for the property?
Oh, big question.
He never stops thinking, planning.
I want look, there's always that physical challenge, right? So it's that thing where we could stop right now, if you could even use the word stop, but we could stop right now and have pretty much everything we need for this property to be doing for us. But there's that challenge thing too, and this happens especially when in permaculture, a lot of the permies talk about it. Whereas, how can you get the most? Seriously, how can you get the most out of your property? And it's not about trying to fill up all the space. It's about trying to get the most out of the dynamics of what you've designed and created. So, it's one thing to see that you've set up some forest layer, forest garden systems, and you've got some nice, reoccurring annual systems, and, you've got these things ticking over really nicely. But it's another thing where you can't help it. You're looking at it going, what can I do better? What can I make more of? And knowing that nature is also going to assist with your ecology plans, right? It's going to do that, but you can't help but want to achieve more and more and more. So just simple things like you have a garden system, and you've already built some infrastructure by setting up the trees to do this, that, and the other. But then you think, right, what if I build a little stand in here and get a water tank that's already sitting in behind that tree there that's going to shade it in the west, keep it cool in summer, and then that brings my water up to another height again, that then I can flow it back down. I just went off camera, sorry guys. But it can flow it down into the swale. So, if you're talking about what other projects we want to do, there's so much more. In a way, I look at this property right now and only see it half done. I don't know if that makes any sense, but look, there's so much more to do with water. So water's a given, right? So there's so much more to do with water storage. There's so much to do with water direction and movement. So, you have tanks that overflow into tanks, but then you can have overflow into more tanks, and then you can have them overflow into little biofert tanks that have a nice little overflow system where just as it rains, you can put in some vermicast liquid, you can put in some seaweed emulsion, some fish emulsion, and after it's overflowed through all those other tanks and you've stored all that water, it overflows into that little biofert distributor, and it just then pumps that water out at a really gentle rate out through the land at a location that's far and wide from where you originally harvested the water from. So yeah, that's
just water.
That's just water. Yeah, yeah. More fruit and nut, more perennial, always more perennial, and
more herbal,
more herbal, and more edible flowers because you never stop that, and more.
We're always trying to create a better learning space for students because that is the main focus of the farm and our business is education. So we're always looking at ways to enhance their experience.
Yeah, more demonstration.
Yeah. We are a bit limited with space now. So it's just utilising what we've got and just getting a little bit more clever with limited funds, of course. So, and we try to we do use recycled most of the time and upcycled, and so it's.
I think, if some of the other projects that we're looking at too, if you're thinking about demonstration, would be projects that tie in with the integration of animals. So there's, at the moment we're doing a little bit more down with our ducks. So the idea of integrating not just the ducks into the system, but to get certain systems back from the ducks. So, the silt traps, the ability for them to make more soil. So to help us make more soil. And the way we look at it, because we enjoy it so much and want to do it because we love it, it ends up making that demonstration anyway that can be used to then pass on to share. And so, for me, I hope it's a never-ending thing. I hope I can never, ever, say to anybody that I've stopped or I've ran out of projects or there's nothing else we can do on this property. This thing has just got to keep going. For me, for my sanity, it's got to keep going.
And that'll be great for us if we could just keep coming back every 4 years. 4 or 5 years. We'll, in 20 years, we'll have a whole series. Someone left a comment on the video saying you guys should film a 12-part series with these people and do a film every month. There's so much in it, and I was like, could totally do that.
You're welcome to come back monthly. Truly, we'll put the wood-fired oven on, and no problem.
Even since you were last here, Jordan, and it was a shame Anthony couldn't make it for the last one, but even since you were last here, there's already multiple projects. Some are rather large. That have happened and either are done or partway through. So already, in that short time frame, and that's what we do. And look, just pointing out to the listeners too, one of the questions that I get all the time is they feel a little bit overwhelmed when they come to our place. They go, oh my God, how can we have this? And the short answer is research, planning, and doing one project at a time. And like that project could be building a compost heap. You build it, project done, start using it. You build a little veggie garden bed, project 2. You plant a tree that's going to protect the chickens. That's a project. It's just little steps. And, when they look at what we've got here, they've got most people appreciate who've been here before would realise that, it's only been the last 2 years that we've been working full-time from the farm. Prior to that, we were obviously, 50 hours a week, doing the usual work.
Slog,
yeah. So
a different type of slog.
Yeah. So basically, the takeaway is that get your planning done. That's stuff you can do at night. Get your research done. That's stuff you can do at night, and then find a project that you think you can knock over on the weekend or in an afternoon, and do one, then do 2, then do 3, and all of a sudden you turn back and you look back after 6 months and you've done 5 or 6 or 8 projects, and it looks it's part of their stages of a bigger project. So, it doesn't need to be overwhelming. Just little things at a time. People try to think, oh my God, I've got to get this whole thing done all at once. That's not how you treat it. And that's not what permaculture asks you to do.
And don't be afraid to ask friends and family to come and help.
Yeah.
If you promise a good feed, you'd be surprised how many people you can come turn up.
Feed them and they will come.
Although we do still have trouble with taking people up on offers, don't we, for free help? It's but anyway,
that's more about us as a demonstration farm trying to prove what Ma, Pa, and the kids can do. Ideally, I mean, we get 5 emails a day for woofers and people wanting to help out. I mean, it's beautiful, and we take some people up on their offer and stuff, but
it's sad we have to knock a lot of them back.
But that's driven by what we're trying to demonstrate. So we're trying to show that yes, as a family group, and any kind of family group can take that on and do it without an army of helpers.
Can accomplish.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. At least to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that advice of you have to celebrate kind of the small victories. It's similar with any project, any big thing you're working on. If you just focus on the end goal, you kind of miss the journey and you're always frustrated by it. And I guess like what you're saying, permaculture asks you to observe and interact. So if you're just focused on the end goal, you're blind to everything else, and you might be working towards some outdated vision because you've actually learned something along the way that changes that vision, the evolving design that you speak about.
Yeah, well, it's one of the leading, slow and small solutions. I mean, it's there. The guidance is there. Sometimes people see those principles of permaculture and it can just look like words sometimes, it's too easy to read something and go, oh yeah, there's a list. But if you stop and actually appreciate what that actually means, small and slow solutions, it's actually helping you. It's going, guys, don't try to do this all at once. Don't try to do the big stuff. If you have a big project, break it down into stages and do it when you can. And ideally, if you take your time, like all good projects, if you take your time, somehow the old universe has a way of throwing things up at you that you can use. So if you rush in and do something, it's going to cost you money. If you take your time, you might have a friend that offers you something that can be upcycled, recycled. I always find that if you just let it project out, it's amazing the things that just end up in your lap.
Thanks for listening to episode 5 of the Happen Films podcast. If you haven't seen our 2 films about Limestone Permaculture Farm, you can find them on our website. They give a detailed tour of the property and show how it's evolved over 4 years. And if you'd like to help us in making these podcasts, please visit happenfilms.com/support. I'll see you next time for another inspiring conversation.